Doesn't it feel like that thick cloud of smoke hovering over Chris Brown's career no longer exists? That's right. If you're like me, you watched Chris Brown go through more ups and downs throughout the course of his career than Will and Jada have in their marriage. Yeah, apparently there's been a lot, allegedly. He went from a child star to getting canceled to virtually becoming uncancelable through his hard work, dedication, and perseverance. That's why in this video, I'm gonna break down how he became the icon we know him as today and how future generations will revere him for years to come. By the way, guys, my name is Uche and I make videos like this every single week, or at least I'm planning to. So if you like what you see, hit that like button. It'll push this out to more people. If you want to see me grow, hit that subscribe button. Now let's get into this. Okay. Let's talk about Christopher Brown, better known as Chris Brown, aka CB, aka Breezy, aka C Breezy, aka Breezy? Hey, I don't condone that one. That one got a whole different connotation. But anyway, it's hard to think Chris Brown has been in the game for a few decades at this point, but it's the truth, guys. I'd say his current tour, as I'm recording this video, his current tour is probably the epitome of a victory lap for Chris Brown. And I'm talking about Breezy Bowl 20, which is a stadium tour. And I actually went to the tour. I saw Detroit show, and it was at Ford Field where the Detroit Lions play. And man, oh man, when I tell you that man put on a historic show from top to bottom, listen, I can't even say enough. He probably has more hits than I have forgotten. And that was on display that night I saw him, man. I'm trying to tell you, he put on a 3-hour show and I was just like, bro, how is he still going? It became an obnoxious amount of hits. And I say that in a good way because I'm a really big Chris Brown fan throughout the years, but it's just dope to see him put on a performance like he's been putting on doing this world tour. And man, if you haven't seen him, make sure y'all go tap in as soon as he is in your city. But if not, man, just go fly to where he's at. And by the way, this is not an ad. I just F with bro. Now, I think in order to really understand Chris Brown, we got to go back. Let's go back to the rise of the R&B prodigy. And if you guys are not familiar, Chris Brown is actually from Tappahannock, Virginia. It's a really small town down there in Southern Virginia. Not from where I'm from. I'm actually from Virginia as well. Hence my handle, Uche VA. Nonetheless, he was actually discovered, man, at a really early age. Like I mentioned before, at 15. He taught himself how to sing and dance. And he was just this bright, bubbling star in his hometown, and he was discovered by a local production team, and he eventually ended up getting signed to Jive Records early on, where a lot of those label folks saw him as the next big superstar. And so that obviously transitioned to his debut album, which was a self-titled album called Chris Brown. It was dropped in 2005. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard charts, selling 154K first week copies. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Dipset era, Cameron, Joel Santana, then you'll understand why Joel Santana was on the lead single called Run It, which was a dope video. It's also a dope verse by Joel's, but that should tell you how hot Joel's was at the time for him to be featuring on this hot new star in Chris Brown. But also, this album had a song called Poppin'. I know you guys remember that. This album was just full of hits, man. It also had the single Gimme That, which was dope. It had Yo, Excuse Me Miss, and it also had one of my low-key favorite songs called Ain't No Way, which he also performed at that concert that I saw him at, man. So it's really dope. I think that album solidified him as like a bubbling star, and that led into his next album, which kind of established his stardom, which was his 2007 album called Exclusive, which, man, it debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200 charts, and it sold 295 first week copies. It had singles like Kiss Kiss featuring T-Pain. It had the song called Take You Down. It had that song With You. It had Wall to Wall. And man, remember that random song at the end of the album called Down featuring Kanye West? I always thought that was a standout song that nobody really highlighted at the time, but oh well. But it's hard to not talk about Chris Brown without mentioning Michael Jackson and the comparisons that have always followed his name. We've seen mentions of him possibly doing a verses with Usher and people saying who's a better performer. As you can see, Chris Brown has always been compared to the greats. And I think at a certain point, when you're compared to the greats, it's pretty obvious that you yourself are a great. But while we saw a huge bubbling career to start, things took a huge turn when he had his highly visible scandal with Rihanna. Now, I want to say this before we get into the whole Rihanna incident. Once again, you know, I'm a big Chris Brown fan, and this isn't meant to bash him. This is just to provide facts, historical references, right? So first of all, Rihanna and Chris Brown, obviously, you guys are aware, they were former partners, and back in 2009, they were on their way to an event, and they had an incident where he actually ended up assaulting her in a vehicle. But long story short, in June of the same year, 2009, Chris Brown pleaded guilty to 1 count of felony assault, and he accepted a plea deal, which he avoided jail time. He also accepted a 5-year probation sentence with 1 year of domestic violence counseling, and had to do a ton of hours. The judge made him agree to a bunch of different things. And so that was a huge blimp in black eye, no pun intended. Jeez, that sounded crazy. In Chris Brown's career, I'm a big believer in second chances. I'm a big believer in people who make mistakes. Give them a second chance, especially when they're kids, man. Kids are not even fully developed, and I feel like Chris Brown was the exact epitome of that. And so I just posed a question for you guys, right? Trigger a warning, by the way, for folks who maybe have been involved in any incident like this. There have been a ton of actors, rappers, singers, producers, Hollywood stars who've been involved in domestic violence disputes throughout the years, and I just feel like they never really received the same level of public scrutiny like Chris Brown did. So whether we're talking people like Dr. Dre or Fabulous, even to a lesser extent Playboy Carti, who's been accused numerous times by his ex-girlfriend Iggy Azalea of domestic violence, I can go down the list. And this is more just to bring up the point. Were people more outraged about this whole Chris Brown incident because of who he assaulted, or the actual charge that was in place, which is domestic violence? Y'all let me know your thoughts in the comments. But after this incident, man, there was swift backlash that he faced. We're talking immediate loss of corporate partnerships that he saw. Chris Brown once had huge endorsement deals with Wrigley's Gum and also Got Milk and a bunch of other campaigns that really allowed him to become the household name that he was as a teenager. And so when this whole incident happened, man, it really was a huge setback. But he was uninvited famously from the 2009 Grammys, even to the point where his distribution was affected. He was pulled from high-profile radio stations, and that significantly impacted his third studio album called Graffiti, which dropped in December of 2009 when it released, and it really did a number on him, man, because as I mentioned before, he typically sold pretty well up until this time, over 100K, but this one in particular only sold 102K first week units, and it had notable songs like I Can Transform Ya, featuring Lil Wayne and Swiss Beats, who was on the production. It had that song called Crawl, So Cold, and it had the very airy and spacey sort of lullaby-esque song called Sing Like Me. And so this was a big blow in Chris Brown's career. It was so much of a blow that at the time he was visibly on social media lashing out on Twitter, complaining, saying his music wasn't stocked in stores and so on and so forth. And so obviously, if you're somebody who holds him accountable, please do that. But I think at the end of the day, let's keep the same energy when it comes to giving people second chances, especially as it relates to kids. At least that's my opinion, guys. You can either agree or disagree, but I feel like Chris Brown definitely served his time and he did what needed to be done to redeem himself. Okay, so following the incident that he had with Rihanna and that whole era that some folks won't let him live down. Listen, I'm not one of them because he's had a very unconventional comeback since then, where he's regained momentum in a way that not a lot of artists would be able to do. And I think it's for a few reasons. Number one, Chris Brown is from the pre-streaming and pre-social media era. If we're really thinking about it, he had to cultivate a fan base the quote-unquote old school way, right? And so he's really the last of a dying breed when it comes to the superstars that were of the past. Second, I think one of the other things that really helped Chris Brown was the fact that he rebelled against, I'd say, the industry and the media and the narratives that were associated with his name. And he really had to dig deep, and he came out more edgy with his music post the exclusive album, right? And so when you get into his album that followed all of that drama, you come out with his fourth album called Fame, which dropped in March of 2011. And it was his first album to debut at #1 on the Billboard charts, selling 270K first week copies. It had the iconic song called Deuces, featuring Tyga and Kevin McCall. It also had Look at Me Now featuring Lil Wayne and Busta Rhymes. It had Yeah, I Want It. It had Beautiful People. It had Next to You featuring Justin Bieber. No BS featuring Kevin McCall. As you guys can see, bro came out with the hits. And honestly, still to this day, these are some of his biggest songs. And I'm gonna get to why Look at Me Now, one of his biggest songs in a few. Next, he had continued success where Fame actually won a Grammy. It was his first Grammy ever. And then we get to his 5th studio album called Fortune, which dropped July of 2012. That one sold 135K first week units. It has songs like Turn Up the Music, it has songs like Don't Wake Me Up, Don't Judge Me, Strip featuring Kevin McCall, Till I Die featuring Big Sean and Wiz Khalifa. And also one of my low-key favorite songs from that album, it was called Oh Yeah featuring Snoop Dogg and 2 Chainz. Now we move to his 6th studio album called X, and that one sold 146K first week units. It had songs like Loyal featuring Lil Wayne and Tyga, Fine China, New Flame featuring Usher and Rick Ross, Don't Think They Know featuring Aaliyah, Rest in Peace, and Songs on 12 Play featuring Trey Songz. That was one of my low-key favorites on that project as well. Now I'm gonna breeze past the next couple of albums, but I know you guys remember, if you're a fan of Chris Brown, we can't forget about the Fan of a Fan mixtape that he did with Tyga back in 2015, or the other album that he dropped called Royalty in December of 2015. Or how about Heartbreak on a Full Moon, which came out October 2017, which had 46 songs on it. Bro was operating on a whole nother level, and bro, I'm be honest with you, I don't know what he was doing with that album. In true Chris Brown fashion, he was able to captivate us with the music, and that's the rare quality that Chris Brown possesses. And so after that, we get Indigo, which dropped in June of 2019. It had that song called Heat featuring Gunna. My God, Gunna snapped on that, didn't he? He also had Slime and B, which was the collab album that he had with Young Thug back in May of 2020. It had the song, which was a radio smash, called Go Crazy. It had the song called Stolen, and it had Animal, which I really, really love, man. My God. Then we fast forward once again. We get Breezy in June of 2022. It had the song Warm Embrace. He keep a hit on every album. Like, it's unbelievable. And then we get to his latest project called 1111, and I'll be real with you, that one dropped in November of 2023, had 22 songs on it. Deluxe dropped April of 2024. That one added another 13 songs, and it ended up winning a Grammy for Best R&B Album at the 2025 Grammys. And when this album came out, man, I was thoroughly impressed by Chris Brown's longevity, the fact that he continued to collaborate with international artists like Davido, like he did on Sensational, or the song called Nightmares with Byron Messia. I was just thoroughly impressed at the way in which he continues to craft quality songs that have great production. The songwriting is phenomenal. His vocals are always clean. He doesn't miss. And so I think all of that is highlighted when you start thinking about songs like Residuals. There's something about Residuals to me that was groundbreaking for Chris Brown. Like, that is a smash R&B hit. I digress. My other favorite song on that album was Angel Numbers / 10 Toes. I love that intro, bro. It's arguably my favorite song on the album. And so, when it's all said and done, Chris Brown has been able to amass a historic career that includes a slew of RID certified hits. He actually is the first singer to have over 40 platinum singles. My goodness. He has 2 diamond certified singles with No Guidance featuring Drake. He also has Look at Me Now, which recently went diamond as well. And at the end of the day, it's impossible to ignore what Chris Brown has built. It's literally impossible, guys. And I feel like if you're hating, you must just be on a different planet, because honestly, Chris Brown is the man. Okay, let's talk about the legacy of Chris Brown. Now, if you ask some people out there who are his detractors, they'll still argue that there's a bad taste in their mouth from what he did in the past and just kind of how he's carried himself over the years. And while, listen, he's no saint, he definitely don't carry himself around like this clean cut guy. We know what he is, I can understand somebody not really liking what Chris Brown brings to the table, but I think his work ethic and his production and output of music has been undeniable over the years. He holds the record for the most top 40 hits of any R&B singer in the history of music. Did you hear what I said? In the history of music, right? And so I think his legacy to me is favorable. When it's all said and done, I think he has proven the industry wrong. You know, there was once a time where the blackballing was put on his name, and I think, again, he's been able to, through perseverance, manage to bypass all of that through his fan engagement, the love that the fans have showed him all throughout the years, and it's been on display to where it's become quite undeniable at this point. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, I think this Breezy Bowl 20 World Stadium Tour has been the epitome of Chris Brown's legacy, where you really are able to see his full talents on display. Bro, have y'all seen the images? He's literally flying in the air on a string while maintaining his vocals and singing. Like, is this guy even a real human being? And so y'all already see the viral clips that go super viral on Twitter, where fans are taking pictures, mainly his women fans, is taking pictures with him. And you can just see the engagement and what his fans mean to him and what he means to his fans. And so as we reflect on the career of Chris Brown, I have to say he has become one of the greatest artists that has ever touched a microphone, that has ever touched the stage. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, that is what he's going to be known for more than any controversy or backlash that he's ever faced, in my opinion. But what do you guys think? Has Chris Brown transcended past that industry curse or blackballing? Or are his past transgressions too much to ever fully recover from? Personally, I think he's done everything he needs to do to cement himself as a legend that he is. But y'all let me know your thoughts in the comments. Shout out to everybody who's been subscribing and got me past 500 subscribers on my channel, man. Shout out to y'all, man. Y'all the real MVPs, for real. Hey, but like I always say, until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.